down.
So we got another very interesting question, which is a bit contradictory to the previous one. Does lobbying make you happy, and how does your work contribute to a happier Europe or a better world? This is from Irene Janssen, who is a gelukslobbyist.
I think I'm in love with you.
I suppose would translate to happiness lobbyist. Look her up and she will explain to you what that means.
In the beginning, when I started as a lobbyist, I was always surprised that I was allowed to send invoices to my clients, because I was saying, why are people paying me for something that I like to do?
Mr. Bing's office.
I think I really made from my hobby my profession. You have to like people. It's a social job. It's intercultural, especially here, 28 countries, languages. And it's not something that you can learn, because there's not a lobby school where you can go to and say, I'm going to study for a lobbyist. I think that a big part should be in your DNA, should be in your genes, that you like to talk to people, that you like to socially interact, that you love to convince people and have an international spirit, and be able to make compromises, because I come from Friesland, and when I came here I was much more, let's say, Dutch, and I became a bit more flexible or European, because here it doesn't matter if you're right, it matters if you get your rights.
It's interesting because when I was little, I was told that I always want to be right, and they told me I should be a lawyer. I did not want to be a lawyer, so I ended up being a lobbyist instead. The work makes me happy because it's different every day. I get up in the morning, I'm not quite sure what the day's going to be like. But what I also like is isn't really a way to do it. There's a million ways of doing it. We're not just selling hot air and bullshit.
You talking to me?
As long as you have a relevant story, as long as you have something to say, and as long as you can add value. And I believe if you are representing clients that whose interests you stand behind, I can go home feeling very happy. So clients happy, we're happy, everybody's happy, lobbying makes us happy. The third question, it says, which Dutch European do you admire most professionally? Wytze.
For me that's very easy, but she's not active anymore today, but that would be Nelly Kroes for me. Nelly Kroes, first of all, it's a female leader, and I think that's all very impressive, her overall career. She managed to be 2 times commissioner instead of only 1 time. First for competition, which is a very rough policy area, and then she switched to digital agenda. We never saw it like that, and she did fantastic things. For example, roaming, the fact that we can now make phone calls or whatever all across Europe without paying extra in Spain, the Netherlands, that we just pay the same price everywhere, is thanks to Nelly Kroes. And besides that, next to that, she has a very nice personality, and she became a very good friend. And as you know, friendship in politics is very rare and exceptional.
I was quite impressed actually with the fact that she took that second term, and it was the digital agenda at the time, and she completely dominated it. She did an excellent job.
By the way, the fact that she was nominated again for a second commission while her political party was not even in government, that's an example of good lobbying, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, for me it's...
who's your favorite?
My favorite is Frans Timmermans, because
he's from Limburg.
Because he's from Limburg, that's very important. It's extremely important. But more important is that I've always believed that the European Commission was pushing out far too much regulation for the purpose of pushing it out. There's a lot of stuff being said about him. The thing that you need to give him credit for is that he slashed this regulatory machine in half. More than that even. A great side effect of that is that they had to sort of reinvent themselves in the European Parliament, and they now are doing far more things proactively, own initiative reports, spending more time on assessing legislation. I think overall the quality of the legislation has improved tremendously. The other thing I really appreciate is the fact that he does still go home to the south and goes to his football matches, etc. He's a normal guy. But there's also a lot of controversy, and he's not immune to that either. So this is a good bridge to our last question for today is, what is your view on the Selmayr affair, and how do you think it will affect the general public's perception of the EU? That might require a bit of explanation. As you probably know, there's the European Commission. There's right below Juncker's office, there's the Secretary General. Secretary General is a very powerful position. He basically presides over all the DGs. And this used to be, until very recently, Alexander Italiano, doing an excellent job. Juncker also said that he did. Martin Selmayr, Juncker's right hand, always in the news as being sort of the puppet master of the European Union, of the European Commission. He's the de facto mover and shaker. All of a sudden, he not only gets promoted to being Deputy Secretary General, but in the same meeting, he's moved up to being the actual Secretary General, because the Secretary General, Mr. Italiano, is dismissed. Retired, right, okay.
Martin Selmayr is a very brilliant civil servant. I think he will be a fantastic Secretary General. But that was not the point for me. The point is that the way he was appointed was not very transparent. To make somebody Deputy Secretary General at 9:30 and at 9:45 Secretary General.
This is real, this is me. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be now. Gonna let the light shine on me.
Is of course not the procedure that we normally would have. More important is it again contributes to a feeling with the people of, they decide everything in back doors, we have nothing to say, and it's the people who fill their pockets, and it's about salaries, and even the story in La Libération saying that the commissioners were being bribed.
That was going to be my question. How does all this affect the image of Europe?
To be honest, I'm very pessimistic, because we have elections next year. Parliament elections, you know that in the last years the turnout only went down. We have the Brexit, so the British people already decided to leave the EU. You see a lot of populism and anti-Europeanism all across Europe. People are very, very critical, which is good, but the arguments don't seem to count anymore. It's either black or white, you're in favor or against, but there's so much between that. I mean, Europe is a fantastic project that you can easily defend if you talk about the challenges for today and tomorrow: climate change, migration, economy, you name it. Especially now we need a strong Europe, it's obvious, but we always manage to F it up. Europe, we deserve a strong Europe, but by doing that, we need to be credible, we need to be democratic, and we need to be transparent, and we should not let the good things about Europe go down the drain.
You know, I'm happy this happened, because it shows that you cannot hide stuff like that anymore.
That's true.
And that's a good thing. There's transparency now, because people are everywhere. There's social media. We're doing this for a reason. As negative as it is, it gets people involved into what's going on here in Europe. Obviously, things need to improve, because what happened is shady, to say the least. That makes people uncomfortable, and the procedures should probably be a bit more transparent.
It's almost elections. For me, it's very important that we have one more year to sell Europe, to make Europe become more sexy. For me, the two things that count most in that is trust and effectiveness. Feeling today is that you cannot trust Europe because it's not delivering on its promises, and second, that it's not effective. But the conclusion is that people say, we should step out of Europe. No, the conclusion, for me at least, is we should invest more in Europe, because we cannot do climate change alone. We cannot do migration alone, which is obvious. That is a cross-border a problem which requires a cross-border solution, and that is European.
But I try to explain to my friends at home when they say the Commission this, the Commission that. It's not the Commission that makes a decision. It's a civil service. They execute. They have a bit of power, but the member states ask for stuff. They get it. They vote on it if they don't want it, and that's it. The member states decide, always.
Especially Germany.
Especially Germany and France. Transparency.
No, it's
I
true.
think that's the key word today.
No, it's true. It's transparency and trust. Double T, I would say.
Double T, I like it. Thanks for joining us for the first episode of #Askalobbyist. Please send us your questions. We'll be doing one of these every week. Thank you very much to Wytze. Don't forget to buy his book. It's called The Fixer. You can buy it on Amazon. We'll put it in the link below. Like our video, subscribe to our channel, and see you next week.
Don't.